gonna be.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine with me if it's helpful.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, because it is just a workshop and advisory, we can take a look at what you got and take it from there.
Okay. So do you want to, I can scroll
Yeah,
through the drawing?
Why don't you just share the drawings and talk us through what the plan is? I looked at them and I couldn't really see any drastic changes, so.
Yeah, it's pretty basic, but I think let's see how I've having thought before that something was basic, I'm trying to not assume that anymore.
That is a good portfolio to have.
So 11.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what happened?
I don't know. I just lost them. I think that's his side.
Yeah. Oh dear. You can do a workshop without a quorum, you don't have.
Yeah, because it's not a vote. We don't take votes during workshops. Ethan, we've lost you if you didn't know that.
Might be the Chromebook.
I'm not sure what it was. We seem to have him, and then he
was gone.
It says connecting to audio.
Andrea. Oh, Andrew's at the last meeting. Okay, so we can vote on these minutes too.
How far is High Street from here? Is that way up?
High Street?
6 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's just up Main Street a little bit.
Okay.
You had COVID 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Were you not here because you had COVID?
It was a month ago. First Saturday of, or first, wasn't that the last time we met?
Yeah.
First Wednesday of, yeah. I got it. At a wedding.
Where was the wedding?
Queens.
Worth it?
Was it worth it? Yeah. Well, yeah. It was actually Luke that gave it to everybody at the wedding. Well, nobody else got it. Actually, I was the only one who ended up getting it. No, that we know of. So I want to tell Ethan that we can't see him.
No see, no hear.
I hope he's not giving like a wonderful presentation right now.
Wondering why nobody's.
Oh, why we're not responding.
Oh my gosh.
No. It really is weird though that Al's not here.
Yeah.
Well,
Please, like nothing.
I mean, we did say we were going to be starting at 7:30 and not 8, and
Well, when have we met at 8? No.
we used to meet at 8 for years
Oh,
before
not in
the
the last,
pandemic.
like,
No. And when we discussed the new meeting schedule, we said we would continue to meet at 7:30. So
He's coming back. Looks like he's.
yeah, I just emailed him and so we lost him.
That was annoying. I can hear you, but I can't see you. So.
Oh, okay. Can you share your screen? Yeah.
It was all set up. Maybe I crashed this thing. I apologize, everybody.
No, don't
I'm all
worry.
here.
It's not powerful enough.
I see myself, but I don't see you. Is it funny? I can't see you. Can I like redo this?
Yeah, just log out and we'll let you back in.
All right. Sorry.
No problem. Whomever watches this video on YouTube is going to be in for a real treat. Can you let him in from the waiting room, Karen?
Oh, sure.
All right, guys, pretend I was in the middle, pretend I just forgot about that time.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where I think I'm recursive. I try to not.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, you're on Paulding, that's where I was. You're coming up Paulding on the right hand side,
Right.
Paulding. And then, so that's the street facade, and then that's a view of, I guess I should have zoomed out. There's a garage, and then the next building over is the brick Verizon building.
Right.
So I guess, so then I'll switch back to the, this is the floor plan. Oh, what I asked, I think, but you couldn't hear me. Can you see when I'm pointing with my cursor? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so floor plan, here's Paulding, here's a garage right on the property line, then there's a retaining wall, and then the Verizon building is here.
Right.
What's interesting about the house, so the no work in the basement, no work on the first floor. What's interesting about the house is that they clearly built it. It's actually even listed as 1.75 stories. The stairs existing, it's all ready kind of to build out. And so I think in terms of the historic purview, I don't know, I guess that's kind of, I guess, up to you all, but right now the scope, I'm just in the design phase, but the scope of work is really replacing these windows and some interior work fairly. It may actually end up being like something like this, one big bedroom and a bathroom, but
Okay.
nothing too, so no other, I think the point of this is a little bit to show there's no real work on the street facing facade. This window, there is, I think, the most sort of eyebrow raising, sorry, these are a little bit dim, but there's no proposed change on the front facade. Can you even see that?
Yeah.
Okay, it's really dim for me. So this is, they're nice. If you go back to the drawings, they're kind of nice 2/2 horizontal mullions. And so I already talked to Weather Shield. They can make that.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea would be to mimic. And then I think the only eyebrow raising idea, because see, there's this is the mountain view here.
Mm-hmm.
and there's this existing chimney. So I was looking at adding a triangle window above, because I can't go. I would, if I had my druthers, I would double that window, but I can't. So that's an idea. There's an existing. If you go to the there's an existing triangle vent. So I guess I was thinking it would be somewhat comparable to that.
So basically just replacing the vent with glass.
Yeah, but a different. It wouldn't be exactly, but a different, sort of a different exact configuration, because the vent is way up in the top.
So what are the second story windows currently made out of?
They are wood. Okay, I don't want to crash my computer again. These are okay. The best view is here. They're all wood. I think they're original. They're all. This is deceiving because that's an interior shade. So if you can you make it out? These are. I apologize for not having a better photo, but they're basically 2/2 with a horizontal solid wood mullion.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they're nice. So like I said, I talked to Weather Shield. These are the sizes, and they're not exact, but they are pretty close to what's there. And none of these pictures, they didn't have any examples of
Of
this.
the mullion pattern. Okay.
And that they didn't have any, but it's this signature series, which I did get one. I asked them if they didn't have, this is sort of what they would look like with the simulated divided light, but obviously without, we would be matching that same 2/2. So none of the vertical mullions.
So when was the house built, Ethan? Do you know?
The records say 57, but I know a lot of records say 57. So 50s.
Okay. And the exterior is it wood siding or aluminum siding?
It is vinyl. Where I was going to go back to the foot. It's
Okay.
vinyl. It's not that. It's vinyl over. The client said asbestos, but I don't know. We haven't tested it. But the hope, all the windows are all there, and other than if we end up doing that triangle window, it would all be largely within the existing rough openings.
So what's the primary goal for replacing the windows upstairs?
They are, and that's something I could probably document. They are, I would say, in a pretty advanced state of disrepair, and so there's storms in them, but they, in terms of so really, I think first of all, if it's the moment to be doing work, so to basically prepare them for the next century, and then also improve energy performance, because we're also embarking on a whole energy insulation retrofit to reduce energy use and also to make it more habitable up there.
Okay. So and is part of that plan to eventually replace the first story windows as well?
I would say that's really, I think, budget constrained, but I'm not, that's kind of outside of the scope of what we've
What you're doing.
talked about.
Okay.
I mean, we have, I can't say that we hadn't sort of bantered around. They definitely are interested in improving the overall aesthetic of the house. but just not within the budget right now. So
Right.
I think
Well,
it,
'cause-
I think, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, part of like when you're talking about incorporating a different material, like a different material for the windows,
Yeah,
there have been times where we've approved something like that when the homeowners have, a sort of longer term plan to eventually swap them all out to match. It's nothing, it's a handshake agreement on our part, obviously, but we would hope that because the windows that you're proposing are aluminum clad wood, and on the one hand, your visibility is somewhat limited because there's no windows on the kind of primary facade, but because of like the slope of the hill, you do see that side facade, and I don't know, we'd have to get into like whether or not the rear is visible from Oak Street, but regardless, I think if there was a plan to,
is Oak Street the one that goes by M&T Bank?
Yeah, Oak is the one that's behind, yeah.
Not,
I think
it's not visible. It's a pretty large lot. It's surprisingly large. It's really not visible.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that the discussion would just be about, the incorporation of a new material on the second floor and how much that would, how much of a kind of change that would be in the whole presentation of the building. I mean, I wouldn't consider it to be a building that's contributing to our period of significance, but it is a nice, tight little minimal building. I mean, it has a pretty minimal palette of materials. So I think that would just be my concern, would be making sure that there was that any kind of deviation from the palette to incorporate these aluminum clad windows would be, pretty minimal. I think them being on the second floor and being on the sides and the rear already kind of reduces it somewhat. But that would just be the first thing that would jump out to me. I think on Main Street, we've had discussions with people where, we've been a little bit stricter about the windows on the primary facades, and then on the rear facades, they've been able to use different materials because they're less visible. So there is, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but it's definitely something that I would want to kind of have an idea of what the eventual plans were for the homeowners. I'm surprised that all of those windows are wood. That's really interesting. My house is from 1953 and none of our windows were wood. They were the similar Munton pattern, but they were all aluminum, like not even aluminum clad. They were just aluminum foil. Yeah, they were terrible. And they've almost all been replaced. So as far as the little kind of clear story window at the apex, I think that's it certainly would be a unique detail. I don't know really. I mean, we have a handful of Gothic windows around of historic Gothic windows. I think it's probably something that would be so kind of minimal. It would be such a kind of a quirky design feature. I don't even know how many people would necessarily notice it from the street. So I think I just would want to see it, kind of a good example of the size and how it would be molded and everything. But
yeah.
What do you think?
Yes, to your point about kind of wrapping our heads around an eventual plan for the building, I think the rear, like we've said, not nearly as important. I think the only little thing here is that second story one on the side facade. And since we cannot dictate color for these things, on one that near you, 2 houses down, that we approved the replacement. Now they have Wasn't it orange right next to Whistling Willie?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They did.
Well, that was a project where actually we did stipulate the color because it was a way to
Well, because
mitigate the,
But they also
vinyl.
said they were gonna, paint the rest of the windows, which they didn't, they sold the house, so.
oh, okay.
So now that second story front, of the house has a new window that doesn't match anything else in the house, so that would be my
Which one is
concern.
that? Out of curiosity, which one was that? I was just curious.
The one that
I
is,
think it's like Six Morris, it's all gray, it's between the library and Whistling Willie's. That was
Yeah.
an instance where we approved a,
Oh, yeah, that one.
it was a whole
yeah,
situation, but
they
it
were
was,
supposed to basically match the color on the rest of the windows, so everything felt more seamless, and they
Right.
didn't. And then the house sold,
and
so.
then-
Yeah.
That would be my only really kind of concern, is that you'd have one window up on the second floor that is very, very clearly different than the rest.
Sure.
right,
And I guess, maintaining the light pattern in those windows with the very, very horizontal panes is fine. I personally don't really have an opinion on, again, if you were gonna be eventually replacing all of the windows, changing that. If your concern, or if their concern is opening up the view a little bit more. And we didn't agree on like a Gothic type of triangular window.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to losing the fake divisions of between the glass, so you have a little bit more glass.
Yeah.
Or
I
whatever. that-
think I'm totally just listening, but I'm happy to, because I know this is more just kind of to get your feedback. But I know that the clients are very, they kind of get it, in a sense. They don't really, if they had their druthers, they would try to do something other than vinyl. And we haven't
Right.
talked about the fake shutters. I don't know if fake shutters when they started, but I know that they're in terms of handshake, I know their interest is to really push the house in terms of like making it shine. I think it actually is sort of surprisingly, I always get really almost jealous of the kind of compact efficiency of that era.
Mhm.
But and I think they really appreciate that and want it to be more. So I don't think their goal isn't to sort of skirt by and make something ugly. But I think that figuring out how to be sort of fitting in the neighborhood, but also accomplishing their goals. I don't think that they are trying to push away from the horizontal mullions even. It's just a question of, I think it's a tough thing, like how to do this in preparation for potentially, if there ever was an interest in re-siding. Since I'm here, let's just say, and in all clarity, I don't think the budget is here for a re-side, but but I didn't really know how to answer to them when we were talking about, like, what is your thoughts in terms of, I think it's asbestos under vinyl. Like, and let's say they wanted to do, let's say, I don't know, cedar shingles, or is there a palette or something that you all are?
I mean, we've approved, uh, I don't know, when was the last time we recited a mid-century house?
I think.
We have definitely approved people to remove composite siding and replace it with wood, of course, we would never turn that down. Whether it was clapboard or shingles would be, I think there's precedent for both. I live in a house that has shingles from this period. And there's plenty of mid-century clapboard houses. I think if it was a question of going from a composite to another composite, I don't even know.
Oh, you know
When was
what?
the last time
Stone Street.
they did that stucco finish?
The
13 on the corner.
yeah,
on the corner of Railroad and Stone.
Yeah,
That's
Didn't
stucco.
they, that was stucco, what, was it something else before? I'm trying to remember. Or there was already stucco there and they continued the
It's a
stucco?
very, it's kind of a similar house.
That was a big
combination of both.
facelift.
Yeah,
But it
Yeah.
stayed within the,
it was period appropriate.
it was period appropriate, yeah. and it-
Yeah, I think it would really depend, Ethan. I mean, again, you know, if it was aluminum siding over a more intact historic building, you know, then we would
Yeah.
obviously just encourage you to take off the siding,
Yeah.
look at the wood, repair as needed.
Yeah.
With vinyl siding over asbestos, I mean, once you take both of those off, there's nothing left. So
Yeah.
it would be, you know, it would kind of open up opportunities for other things. But and whether that was like a composite plank material, which there's several that are common and we've approved elsewhere.
Mhm.
I think it would be a question of, you know, what they wanted to achieve and what their
Yeah.
kind of budget allowed for.
Sure. Well, like I
but
said,
I
I don't
wouldn't-
think, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I wouldn't, there's bound to be a solution. I wouldn't say, you know, because it's vinyl, it has to stay vinyl, you know? The only time that we ever really mandate that is if somebody's doing work and they need to patch, you know, a
Right.
small part, then we require the materials to stay the same. But, you know, if they did want to remove the vinyl, and obviously if they wanted to remove the asbestos, you know, I'm sure that there's a material that we could agree on
Yeah.
that would be appropriate for the building. There's, like I said, there's other mid-century houses, even if they aren't necessarily in the village, in the district, but in the village, there's other examples with other materials. It's not just vinyl or brick.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as often happens, I think now I'm gonna start seeing this house all over the place, but
yeah, you
But like
will.
you said, so for now, it's just the window. So I'm gonna develop the plans a little more. And then I think get a little bit more detailed. I can take better photos of the existing windows. Is there anything else you'd want on the documentation?
No, I think just more photos kind of outlining the plan, and then,
Yeah, clearer photo maybe of the vent up in the eave on the side of the
yeah,
house.
and what that would be.
Yeah,
And like what the dimensions, if you are gonna do a fixed window above it, what those dimensions would end up being.
yeah,
I'm assuming it's gonna be inoperable, so just
Yeah.
to understand what that'll look like. Yeah, and then again, you know, I guess the real question would be, you know, with wood windows, we would always try to encourage them to be repaired.
right.
So we would probably get into a little bit of a discussion about, you know, whether it is possible for them to be repaired or whether it's possible for them to be, you know, just have the sashes replaced and, which we also have approved elsewhere. We've had historic windows replaced with aluminum clad sashes, but without having to change any of the openings. And then I think the last thing too is that if we are getting into replacing the windows, we would want to see full frame replacements, not inserts.
Yeah,
And that would just come down to the actual, you know, units themselves and whatever manufacturer you go with.
yeah. Well, and also they're basically fully accessible from the inside. In terms
Right,
of
if the whole space is being gutted, then that's easier to do. So,
well, not even
um,
gutted. It's just it's interesting.
well,
They just
already is, yeah.
they built the full stair and it's a full height 3/4 space up there with windows. And I think they must have always planned to do this.
Yeah.
Now, question about repair. So now it's it seems to me that like if you can even see, say, in the reflection pattern that because with a single pane, with the single pane old windows, we probably need to maintain the storms. So it seemed to me that maybe that the new, especially the full frame replacement, would kind of might actually have a more like you can see here too, that full frame replacements would kind of
Be
Good.
nicer looking.
harken back to an earlier time.
Yeah, and they would have their own integrated, well, first of all, you wouldn't even have storms on them because they'd be double paned.
Yeah,
I
that's my
would, I
point.
would interject that a new aluminum window with applied muttons is never going to look
Okay.
appropriate in an old building.
Yeah.
I understand your point about, unfortunately, the triple track aluminum storm windows that are often on these houses are quite unsightly and do indeed detract from the aesthetics. So I
Yeah.
get that point.
Yeah. Okay. So I think so I'll develop these. I'm assuming it's not going to change too much because I'm not pressing for any new openings other than potentially that additional triangle on the very peak. But so I'll develop these, and then I think I would still go where I would just submit for the permit and be referred to you, or is that-
Yeah, if you put in the application for the permit, you'll get referred to us, and then you'll have to put together the HDRB application. And even with that, I mean, there's still opportunities for discussion after the fact. So
Yeah.
just because you have an open application doesn't mean that it has to be 100% final when you submit it. If there's other changes or details that we need, we can discuss that afterwards.
Yeah.
But we just wouldn't be able to actually take any action until we have an application and a referral.
Is there any resources you recommend for repairing that type of window? Like people?
We can't recommend individuals or products, but I would imagine that if you ask around the village, you will be able to find somebody who could recommend a reliable contractor.
Yeah.
A lot of times with the with the old wood windows, more than any real window specialist, a competent carpenter, a
Yeah.
good carpenter is usually more than capable of doing any type of repair that would be needed on a wood window,
Right.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and actually to that point too, the last application who we approved replacement sashes for sourced them through Weather Shield. So that is also something to consider if you are just going to do the replacement sashes. That's a product that they also supply. They get pretty highly customized at that point, but
Yeah.
so we'll be meeting again on November 5th, December 6th or 5th. What's the date? The 6th. So if you can get all those materials together and into us, we can see you before Christmas. Otherwise, we'll see you in the new year.
So you think, given this, that it could, whether we go the repair or replacement route, depending, you think that I could probably get a turnaround for a building permit and then the next time I met with you would be an actual, what we call it, a real meeting?
Yeah, I assume so. I mean, I don't think it would take longer than a month to get the referral to us. And
Is this something that they'll have to talk to their neighbors about and all of that?
I don't believe so. We only really require public hearings for new construction or substantial additions, and this is neither of those.
Okay.
Ethan, one more thing to add. I can't say the names, but there are companies that make inner energy panels.
Yeah, I'm
Interior
familiar with them.
energy. So if repair is viable, it could even end up being more cost efficient, and in terms of energy efficiency, just as good as a replacement window. So an interior energy panel might be something worth exploring for you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I've seen those, but I haven't worked with them specifically.
Yeah, I have them in my entire house. So
Cool.
they work very well.
And then one last thing, Ethan, which I'm sure you've probably already taken into consideration, but I can't tell from the pictures how big the windows are. If you're going to need an egress window,
Right.
Oh yeah, I have them drawn as egress, but
so they're double hung and they're still egress sized.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, because if you were gonna have to put in a casement, then we would just want to put it in kind of the least visible spot. So, all right,
Okay.
great. So then let us know if you have any other questions and we'll try to see you in December.
So
Or you
just
will.
so if
you
I
will
go
try-
with the casement, the case, I mean, it would be better, I think, from an egress perspective, because there's a little kind of a patio roof out there. But so you're saying if I put the casement on the rear is your point? Yeah.
I would think either on the rear or maybe on the reverse, not the side with the, just because it'll be a single window. So if it was on the uphill side of the house in
Yeah.
that single spot, but
And do you
I mean,
prefer-
if you can get the space in a double hung window, then that's totally fine, but
yeah,
I know
but I'm
sometimes.
thinking
Well,
now if when one does such a thing, do you prefer, let's say with that casement, having it to be fully, I mean, I would imagine we'd want it to be fully kind of matching the others with the SDLs.
Yeah,
yeah, usually people just fake out like a fatter
Yeah.
cheek rail.
I don't know the.
Big thing. If you can, we can see what the
I think you-
actual options are, but you'd want to have some decoration on it so it at least kind of blend with the others.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you in a month.
All right, hopefully.
Great. Okay, so now we'll actually call the meeting to order. It is, what time is it? It is 8:22. All right, so Winfred, since you've been waiting, we will go to 142 Main first, and then I see Enrique is dialed in, so we'll discuss 46 Paulding after we finish 142 Main. And Andrea is here. Thank
I'm
you for
here.
coming, Andrea.
I made it.
Would you like to join us at the table? Okay, so this is the 142 Main Street. It's the Highland Current building, is that right?
Yeah.
The brick building. Okay. So I spoke to somebody, L or the expediter,
Okay.
Ella maybe was their name. They were just asking about what we needed to see, but so why don't you tell us a bit about what's there now?
Right now there are aluminum storm windows on the outside and double hung windows on the inside.
Okay, and
On weights.
they're weighted, so they're wood windows on the
Yeah.
I
inside.
think they're old, they're
They're
might be
old,
the
yeah.
original.
Okay. And so there's 6 windows on the
On the
front
front, yeah, and 5 on the back.
and 5 on the back, and
Yeah.
the windows in the rear are wood as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and what you're proposing to replace them with are
Anderson, yeah, like.
the Anderson double hung
Oh,
insert, which are,
These are insert.
these are insert replacement. What are these aluminum clad or vinyl clad?
aluminum, I believe.
Interior sandstone
I'm-
finish
yeah,
with
they don't
grills
really-
bolted. It just says Anderson tilt wash, but it doesn't have the series number. Okay,
That's a Sears 400.
oh, it's the 400 series. I
yeah.
can never remember if those are,
So,
okay. Well, let's talk about so as you overheard part of that conversation, talking about a very different building in a very different part of the district. I will preface it by saying this.
Mhm.
But so in this case, if these windows are are wood windows, we would want to see them repaired
mhm,
or as best they could be, or replaced with wood windows,
mhm.
or replaced with, have the sashes repaired or replaced or something like that. There's a couple of reasons why. Well, the first is it is our responsibility to maintain the historic fabric of the
Yeah.
district. The other big issue as well is that when you get into windows that are sold as insert replacement windows,
Mm.
that you see the total size of the window sort of decreased because you have the entire structure of a window fitting into just the daylight opening of the historic window. So that's an area where we would need to really discuss the plan a little bit more. What is the issue with the windows themselves that you're confronting?
Well, since I'm not living there myself, it's rented, the apartment.
Okay.
It's one apartment, the 2-story. I always had to, Howard and I, when we originally bought the building 25 years ago, we restored the windows, put the chains back on and all that. And it was very time consuming to do all of that. And, in carefully handling it, it works. However, if you have a tenant in there, they're not as careful. And so the damage you see is on the inside, is with the glass and so on. If you just bang them down, because of the weights and so on, you crack the glass and so on.
That happens?
I'm sorry?
Sorry to interrupt. Have any of the panes of glass been cracked?
Yes, quite in
Okay,
front.
you've
Yeah.
damaged to some of the original glazing.
Yeah. So, and when we restored them, we actually got the historic glass, which had the little bubbles on them.
Yeah.
And so on, And
I'm
but
sorry, what's that? Oh, it's the next door. This is the village hall. The police station's next door. That I don't know if anyone's up there. Sorry. You replaced them with so you replaced the windows with historic glass that you were able to source. Okay.
Yeah. And so and putted them back in and all that, and so it's like a constant. Over the last 25 years, it has been a constant battle. Trying to save what's there, and the way it's being handled, it's
Right.
impossible to keep something being relative fragile if you're not careful, So whether it's the chain jumping off the rolls, and then the tenant is trying to wedge, trying to get it out, and then wedging something else into it or whatever.
Right.
So it's sort of it's a constant battle with that, And now going through it again, and I had a change in tenants. The new tenant just moved in, and looking at it, it's like everything was in vain, and whether you have the latches, that you whether you turn them the right way and then open up and down, breaking the buttons on the upper parts, where you have the 6 panels in, that's like a constant.
Right. So what were the windows? So when you first bought the building, the windows were wood windows that you repaired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same windows.
These are,
So it's-
yeah, these are.
the same windows. No, the same windows.
So you've just been in a
And
state of
we
repairing the wood
constantly
windows.
Try to repair them. We put the weights back on. Actually, they were on ropes. We put them on chains, because the ropes get wedged again in between, and then a tenant just cuts it off, and that's it,
Right.
and then you start all over again.
Right.
So then we did try it with the chains, and the same story. So that's the thing. That's a battle. If I was living there myself, up in the house in Garrison where I live, I have in the old part of the house, I still have all the old windows, you know, goes back to 1850s, you know, with the bubble glass and all that. Beautiful. Everything works fine, you know, but you have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
And once you are talking about rental, you try to keep it decent. The people don't even wash the windows because it's so difficult for them to wash the windows. So the windows are dirty, you know, so.
Well, I've never known a rental tenant that actually spent time cleaning their windows,
But you know what I'm trying to.
I think it's a tricky situation because, as Sean said, our goal, our, you know, what we're supposed to be doing is kind of at odds with yours, and yours is really a usage issue more than anything else. The windows do work. They're in relatively good condition. I think, you know, there aren't a lot of buildings on Main Street that have the original windows. There's even fewer brick buildings that have the original
Right.
windows. So
It sounds like more of a tenant, quality of tenant.
yeah,
problem.
which I understand because it's renters that renters generally are not gonna respect, they don't respect any aspect of the home the way that the homeowner would. But again, I don't know where we.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I can't ignore as well is that this particular block that you're on has, you know, 4 buildings in a row. I think they have all of their original windows or very credible replacements. And it does create a really great example.
The building next to me where the old homestead was in,
Yeah,
those windows were all replaced.
Mhm.
on the second story, they were.
That was Roger Ailes when she replaced all the
I
windows.
remember.
And we actually had the sign, the old homestead sign, we had it in our basement, we gave it back to Elizabeth.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
you did? Oh, that's so strange.
Well,
Those windows are on the second floor. Is that the building with the balcony on them?
yeah, it has a
Yeah.
balcony.
The balcony is on.
Yeah.
The balcony was added back on again to the
Right,
building, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking also, I was thinking more actually about the 2 buildings on the other side, the McCaffrey buildings, but
Yeah.
I would say, and I am only one of 5 members of our board, 3 who are here. You know, I do think that when it comes to the rear of the building, if we were going to look at those windows, if there's an opportunity to replace those with something which is a little bit more durable for you know, for your tenant. I know it's not all of the windows that you're requesting, but I think there's an opportunity for us to consider that because it isn't a very visible facade. I would actually have to walk around the block. I can't. I actually
have to go on the fire department.
Yeah, I don't think it's actually visible at all because we don't consider parking lots to be a public right of way. So I don't think you'd be able to see that building from anywhere. So, you know, if it were to help with the issue of maintaining them, we could consider replacements for those windows and replacing them with something newer and more robust.
The funny part is the windows in the back are actually better.
They're better than the ones.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we again could consider talking through, as we discussed with the other tenant, the other applicant, would be something like sash replacements for the windows in the front, because they don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, sash replacements are on springs and not on chains and weights. So that concern about having the pocket and the weight and and the cords and all of those could be resolved. You lose, you know, this is what we talked about with 68 Main or whoever. Luke's
The
old
blue
house,
yeah.
So that is something that we could, you know, discuss, if you presented a scheme with those where we could consider that, you wouldn't be losing as much of the exterior trim. We would still be losing the windows themselves, but as you said, you personally have already repaired and updated these windows with new glass. I'd be open to discussing something like that if they were, if it was still painted wood sashes and maintain the look of what's there right now. If you were going to replace these wood windows with new wood windows, it would be considered a replacement in kind, and we wouldn't even be having this discussion. But
What do you mean by that now?
Well, they would need to be full replacements too, so I don't know what the,
So you have to rip the inside out and the
Yeah.
outside. That's.
Yeah. yeah, I mean,
You're
depending on what
doing
kind of.
more
It's a significant amount of- no, yeah,
They're doing more damage to everything.
Right.
I realize that it's a
That's-
significant amount of work, but what I'm saying is our board
Mhm.
only has purview in material changes or design changes to a building. So that is what I was getting at, is that, if it's wood to wood, then it's considered a kind of lateral change. That wouldn't be the best solution here, because
The use.
the use is an issue and the maintenance is an issue. So I think the areas where we could consider, kind of bridging the gap between the historic windows that you have and more contemporary design would be something like sash replacements, or something along those lines. I mean, I think to take out these sashes and replace them with, an insert replacement window is, I don't think any composition of this board
No.
would
See,
approve
I
that.
talked to a window person here in town,
Mhm.
a window,
Mhm.
and they said they don't make them anymore. You have to replace the whole window now, and that's going to be very.
Yeah, I don't know about it,
So
sash.
they don't make the sash windows anymore. He said you have to replace the whole. That's why I went to Anderson,
Mhm.
because I figured that is the best look to what. And you're getting rid of the storm windows, the aluminum storm windows,
Right.
which are, I don't know, probably from the 20s, and they're not.
Probably the 50s.
Not,
60s.
and it's also an energy point and
Right.
all that, so,
Right.
Yeah,
That is, so I'm basically left with what I'm having.
Mhm. The challenge is that you are in the national district and because you're this cluster of buildings that have so much rich original material, as Sean stated, our only job, unfortunately, we can't review usage. Our only job here is to protect as much original material in the village as we can. Which is why we're having a tough time with these windows. Can I ask, why are they being, since we're touching on usage?
Since we're touching on the thing that we're not supposed to be touching.
You cannot,
I'm just-
reason this a tenant.
Right,
What's going to happen, you're being left with the damage, that's what. it
are
is.
the windows on the back, so what are these original windows on the back?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, those are the same.
you said these are in better
they're the
shape.
Same in kind as the ones in front, the wood
Right.
windows,
The original
same,
wood
the
window.
original,
okay.
same kind, it's just that it's in the back. You see
And
the
they're
ones,
opening and slamming only the front ones, not the back ones?
you see the back ones is bedrooms and bathroom, so.
No, they're just being used, potentially being used.
So I guess the use is not as much as the one in front.
Yeah.
Plus in the back, it's like in the winter time, it's the north side, so you get the cold wind from the.
I see.
overlay,
Okay, yeah, I was just curious about why this,
It's a
What's
front that gets
happening?
beating from the sun all day,
Yeah.
that's another issue, so.
Okay,
I mean, I have lived with the building, I know what's going on there, so.
Right.
Well, I guess. Um. These proposed windows definitely would not be
No.
approved.
Okay.
So we can start there.
Yeah.
As far as resources for a alternate plan,
Mhm.
my experience in Home Depot is that you are not going to get any real knowledge of,
Okay.
the options.
Mhm.
So it
No,
could
I
be
just, I just
Yeah.
went with, when I go there, I look at the product.
yeah,
And when I look from the outside, what it looks like, it looks decent. The Anderson window or J-Weld or whatever you want to call them, they're wood windows. They have the cladding on the outside with either vinyl or aluminum, where I think the vinyl is of a lesser quality than the vinyl, the aluminum, and so that's why I thought that might be a good product. Plus, the muttons are the same size as the ones which are there right now, and so that's what I'm. And plus it's a safety issue too. Like the bottom half of the windows are the tempered glass. Where in the old windows you don't have
Well,
tempered glass.
right.
unless it's an egress situation, we can't review, safety or usage, like.
No,
Only per.
all what's going.
better or worse, for
What
better or worse, you have a very beautiful, well-maintained building on Main Street. And this would be a different conversation if it was rotting and falling apart, but
Right.
you have maintained it very well. And I mean, my house is right off of Main Street and 170 years old, and all of the wood windows. We reglazed and
Yeah.
painted and replaced probably 50 something panes of glass. It still ended up being cheaper than replacement. I didn't even come before the board at that point because I knew removing all of the interior molding,
Molding.
which they're very heavily, a lot of molding. Plus the cost of replacement windows was gonna be astronomical. And so, the windows operate for pretty well for the most part, and we have an interior energy panel and they, I think they perform just fine. So we kind of land back where we started, which is the usage of the space, which we can't really consider. I would circle back to what Sean mentioned, which is possibly considering some kind of compromise with the rear facade of the building. But I think because the wood windows are intact and your front facade is intact, I would find that a very difficult pill to swallow. Any type of just sash or insert replacement window going in there.
And maybe your tenants have to understand that they are living in a historic building that's very significant to Main Street. I mean,
I understand. I actually have the book at home, I know all about it. I understand it,
Right.
I understand. it
Yeah.
100%.
It's a tricky situation.
Only thing is trying to maintain a building like that and
Yeah.
we're trying to get somebody to do repairs
Yeah.
like that.
Right,
Who's sensitive enough to
Mhm.
can repair, because I'm getting to be at the point where I can't do it anymore.
certainly, and we are certainly sympathetic
And
to that.
then I'm going to say, then I'm going to say goodbye to it all and be done with it.
I think as far as moving this application along and making some progress on it, the first would be for our board to determine the visibility of the rear. If it's not visible from a public right of way, then it would be outside of our purview and we would not. You could do whatever you want. We would encourage you to do something sympathetic. Can you on your daily strolls give us a walk around and tell us what the visibility is like?
You know, I wouldn't go then ahead with that, you know, because I wouldn't start mixing up in the building, you know, inside the building, one thing with the other, you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't.
Then I'd rather keep it the way it is, you
Okay.
know, and then do you have any recommendation who would be helpful in something like that? In restoring what's there?
I was
Do you have any?
unaware that
referrals?
replacement sashes were no longer on the market.
So I don't, that's what was being told from.
Yeah, I mean, we approved an
Tyler-
application.
Tyler told me they don't make them anymore.
Danes Lumber in Peekskill has
Yeah,
been there since
very good.
18,
Yeah, I know them, yeah.
so they are generally pretty knowledgeable about all things
Yeah.
wood and
Mm.
windows and old house, so they could be a resource that might be able to, you know, offer some insight on all sorts of things, including new windows.
Mm.
Yeah, the reason why I was just saying that you know, if you did feel like you needed to, for the same reasons, replace the windows in the back, it is a different facade, we would, you know, consider those to be separate things. If there was damage, if there was a need for it or anything like that, obviously we can't tell your tenants what to do in terms of the usage. And if it's not visible, then it would be outside of our purview, so we wouldn't have any say in it anyway. For the front, I am getting the impression that with the three of us here, we would not approve this application as it's been submitted. I would consider talking to some other people who specifically deal with wood windows and carpentry and see what other methods of maintaining these windows are possible. To a degree, I think that Todd's point about I mean, it wouldn't necessarily help with the screens, but doing interior storm panels may help to not just insulate the space a little bit better, but it might also just help to
Might lessen the usage.
keep people away from the windows a little bit more. I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
might seem
yeah.
like a strange way of dealing
Good
with it,
idea, right?
but if there's you know, if there's
Well, they still want to open and close the windows. You know what I'm trying to say? They still have to access the windows.
no, I'm not, these don't prevent you from
I
accessing the
understand
windows.
As far as the energy part, you
Right.
know, but that's a separate issue then altogether. But operating the windows as such, you know, whether it's a storm windows on the outside or whether it's
It's a different problem. The storm window on the outside, you have to open and close two different windows every
Yeah.
time. The storm window on the inside, you're not gonna be opening and closing every window. You're probably gonna pick and choose, maybe one window in this room or whatever it is. But to Sean's point of lessening, you know, I mean, we live in the Northeast, the majority of the year, you're not having your windows open. So
Right.
it's a little bit of a trickier kind of situation in a different way. But it's another option, I think.
So yeah, we would be happy to talk to you about this again
Mhm.
at the next meeting if you have other alternatives that you want to present to us. But as you know, as presented with the insert windows, this isn't quite the right solution for this particular building. And we'd be happy to, you know, between now and our next meeting, if you want to email us or ask us about anything else, we can give you guidance. We can't make any decisions outside of session, but if you have any
Yeah,
follow-up
guidance is
questions or
basically
anything.
Finding somebody to repair what's there.
There's somebody in Newburgh, there's a wood window specialist, I don't know their name. I couldn't tell you.
Window specialist.
Yeah.
in-
We're not
Like a
allowed to say
historic,
Mm.
there is, I don't know the name of the company, I couldn't
Right.
tell you, even if I did,
No,
but.
No,
I do-
no, I
I do
understand.
know-
Okay.
Yeah,
Do
I do know that
something-
there is somebody
Yeah.
that specializes in historic
Yeah.
wood
That would
windows.
make sense.
And even if you didn't need anything now, they could be a resource for suggestions for other paths
Yeah.
forward too.
And in the meantime, the cold weather is setting in, so hopefully your tenants will be.
Okay.
opening-
I'll leave the windows.
Like they're crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and again, if it is if it comes down to some type of replacement that doesn't involve the weights and doesn't involve the cords and involves some other mechanism, as long as we can look at it and see examples of it. I mean, you are lucky that it's the second and third story windows. They're not directly on the street, which, you know, we've had to deal with other applications who are right up there in your face. So if there is some other hardware mechanism that has to happen inside, you know, we will certainly consider anything. Yeah, that I think is the best kind of direction we can give you now. But we'll certainly take a look at it again when you have something else to talk about.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
so our meeting's on the, I keep-
December.
we're gonna do-
Yeah, but I
Tuesday.
don't think that I will be able to do anything until then. Okay.
okay.
Okay,
So
So it's the first Tuesday of the month.
Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, great.
Thank
Nice
you, and
meeting
thank
you.
you. Nice meeting you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Take care. Is Enrique still with us on the?
Yes, yes, I'm Mrs. Sevilla. Hello.
Hello, you don't sound like an Enrique.
No, I'm Mrs. Enrique Sevilla.
Yeah,
Okay.
you'll be better off. You'll be better
Nice
off
to
with
meet
me
you.
hearing from her than from me.
We actually can't see either of you right now, but that's our thing.
We're working on
I don't know what
It's
it,
a little, it's
Oh,
the
there, is that
second
it?
Zoom, yeah, there you go.
okay.
it.
So thanks for joining us. We got the
No, no,
cut sheet that you sent over for the door.
Uh-huh.
And then we just wanted to, we had asked for some additional, oh, there we go, perfect.
Yes.
yeah, we thought we presented live.
Okay, great. So this is the house. That is the front door.
Yes.
And then, so is that a metal door?
It's a
Or-
metal door, yes, with the beautiful cracked vinyl mullions
Right.
on the window. Um,
Well, based on what I see there,
and it was
Yeah.
painted green by the previous homeowner.
Great.
Yeah.
And so the door that you're proposing is this three light, it's this one, Andrew.
Yeah, I know, I don't see my pocket.
So it's three lights over raised panel. It's solid wood, is that right?
Yes, it's a solid wood door, and we didn't include pictures on the garage exit. There's a door exactly like that that is original to the house.
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing that we were hoping to see a photo of, but, so it's not a new door that you've put in, it's, you're mimicking a historic door?
Correct.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, I see. Okay,
We're
great.
both creative people, so this is kind of second nature to us.
Great. Do you have any questions for the applicants?
This looks much more appropriate.
yeah.
I mean, a poor door.
Yeah, it has a dent in it. It's really
I can
ugly.
see. Oh, God.
Yeah, it's really sad. So,
Okay, and then I guess just the other thing are you intending to leave the door unfinished, or will it be stained or painted? You don't have to tell us what color it will be, but just so that we can relay that to the building inspector.
As much as we like bright green, I doubt we would leave the door that color.
Okay, so it'll be painted or stained
Appropriate to the
by you.
Yeah.
and it'll be
to a
nice
mid-century
solid-
house. I mean, I love mid-century architecture, and so I want the house to look appropriate to the period. Even though we're nestled in between Victorians,
yeah,
Yeah.
still be proud.
Yeah,
I
you've
mean-
got one of the few mid-century houses in
Yeah.
the district.
I love these.
The glass is gonna be clear or obscure?
Clear.
Okay.
Great. All right, I don't have any
That was easy.
problem with it. I think it's a perfectly, as Andrea said, a perfectly appropriate house for a perfectly appropriate door for the
You have a
house.
Similar door in your house, which is also a mid-century.
I do, I have
Oh.
almost the exact same door in my house.
yeah. I mean, we're trying to harken back to that 62 period,
Yeah,
you know, when the house was built. So
yeah. Well, it's
Great.
exciting. We don't have a lot of mid-century examples in the village and,
No.
so the ones that we have are real gems, so we appreciate seeing an appropriate door in this house.
Can I get a motion on the application as submitted?
I would make a motion to accept the application as submitted.
I will second that.
And
All in favor?
I will that. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. So with unanimous approval, it is approved. So what will happen next is over the weekend, the chair, Al Zielinski, will process your certificate of appropriateness and will forward it to the village clerk and the building inspector, and the building department will issue your permit.
Okay, great. Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Great. And if
you.
anything changes, just let us know and we will address it appropriately.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Good night.
Well, yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. So we have minutes from, I'm assuming there's no public comment because there's no public. Lloyd's not here. Oh, so the signage thing, just to give you guys a update, I met with the mayor, ZBA chair, Greg, about signage.
Yeah.
We have two issues. One is the one that we all emailed about.
Oh, God.
The other one is we have a ton of signs that are not approved all over the village that aren't egregious. They just were never approved.
Right.
So we need to, so the building inspector has been working on enforcing, increasing the enforcement of the sidewalk clearance. Each building can't have things on the sidewalk that extend more
Sandwich
than
boards and things like that.
sandwich boards, chairs, all of these things that extend more than 3 feet from their storefront, and some of them have just been getting like pretty
Emboldened.
huge. Yeah. So he did a whole sweep of enforcement and sent letters to the business owners, landlords about all of those things a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So we were planning a similar thing for signs which are non-conforming that either are that haven't been approved by us or are not. So signage is a zoning and HDRB thing. We approve materials and how it's connected to the building. ZBA approves how much signage you actually can have on any business. There's a threshold of square footage that you're not allowed to exceed. Some businesses have exceeded that. So ZBA, the zoning chapter of the ordinance is currently being worked on, and the signage chapter of the village code relates to zoning, not to us. So between us, CBA, and the code, these things are all going to be tightened up and addressed. And in the short term, the building inspector is going to, we're going to have to work on a whole kind of signage plan thing to get people up to compliance. So we are working on it.
And the lower main one in particular.
That one is, it's gotten, I mean, even in like the
I don't
3
even
weeks.
understand. It wasn't
It
like,
goes up like mushrooms, like.
I mean,
burn.
It's growing, so I got an email about it from the planning chair. I got an email about it from you and from Lloyd, and I got an email about it today from one of our trustees. And it's like a flip book, like over the course of 3 weeks, they've expanded, there's so many more.
the one that's just like in wood, like popped up from the wrought iron, like on the property line, like
I have
what
no
on
idea.
earth? How do you-
We have it be issued.
That's what I thought. I'm like, I would have been on the phone the next day if I lived next door.
We do have an issue, which is of course that we have no purview over temporary signs. So but
That
the
language should be tightened
but the
up.
definition of temporary
Yeah.
sign is very is being interpreted very loosely in this sense. So
Yeah, like-
we are working on it, and we will probably have a more specific plan for enforcement in December, if not before.
But Greg is issuing violations? Did you say?
Greg is going to be issuing violations for all of our non-compliant signs
Can some,
When-
i.e. that one be
when
prioritized?
we give him the list of places to issue ordinance, issue enforcement issues with. I think that one actually is
Yeah.
truly it's actually, it has to do with us. I think it has much more to do with zoning because there's so much of it. So
Okay.
that they will probably be the ones who are actually.
But even if you read
issuing
in
the
some of that, like that will send a message that there's a crackdown
Right, right.
coming.
Because, like I said, I mean, we, things that are zip tied to a railing are.
Not temporary.
Not, well, yeah,
The problem is we don't have the language within the village code right now, especially if they're still working on tightening.
I mean, the
lines.
Silver Spoon, the old whatever, they have the same thing and it's been there for
Yeah,
years.
zip
It's
tie,
reopened, zip
yeah.
tie, free breakfast, blah, 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 like, printed on a vinyl side on there.
so yet another reason to make sure that our design guidelines are
The
finished.
village, This lawsuit, you probably heard about the lawsuit that happened many years ago. That was kind of what got the
Oh.
whole ball rolling. So we have to be
Okay.
like, we have to tread very carefully.
Well, that's a little bit of a different situation. That had to do with,
Oh, was that? Whistling Willie's years ago?
no, it wasn't a business
It was a
owner, it was a
person.
homeowner, and it was about political speech, and that was why we have to technically,
Yeah.
somebody can,
That's
our
really-
code
that's really
allows,
interesting.
if our board cannot meet within 3 days of a sign application being submitted, the person can install the sign. However, if we don't approve the sign, then they are required to take it down.
Yeah. So
But
that's what
so it actually is,
Yeah.
creates a huge inconvenience for the person installing the sign, but
Yeah.
it
Well, I have the
allows,
Choice then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Minutes from
I know.
October
Oh my
5th.
God,
I have nothing with.
Karen does such a beautiful job with the
Yeah.
I have no,
Oh my goodness, I make a motion to approve. the
I've
minutes
never-
as submitted.
And all my years on this board, we never had nice minutes like that.
okay. Can I get a second
A
on that
beautiful
motion?
thing.
Oh,
second it.
actually, sorry, I did have a correction, Karen. On the last page, it was for the approval of minutes. The motion should have been 4010 because Andrea was not at the September meeting. So she abstained from that vote.
Okay.
So as
That's that.
modified, can I get a motion?
I move to accept the minutes as modified.
Right, and a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
For me, showing up late, we're moving there.
Yeah, we're good. We're in it.
Sean, are you gonna fix that on your,
Uh,
Amy, and do it and then send?
you can, oh, that's a great question.
Because normally you would.
We would do it in real time. Yeah, why don't you do it and then email the approved
Correct, and then
draft
you-
to Al,
Okay.
and you can copy me,
Okay.
but just send it to him directly
Sure.
because he'll put, okay.
Right.
Any questions, any concerns?
I hope Al's right.
Yeah, I know.
All right, too.
Well, it's a change in the day, which can be just, like, I had me all confused.
I know, this was our
Especially
first,
All confused.
our first Tuesday
Responded
meeting.
like-
I thought it was Monday, my kids had to talk to me, they were like, we were at school, Mom. I'm like, oh yeah, I said, yes, you were.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I will, make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The time is 9:05.
All right,
Good
folks.
job, team,
Great.
pulled it together.
Um,
Coming in, Andrea.